question. I kind of wanted to ask, I've been to Catch One before, a long time ago, not even knowing who you were as a person. I remember the fried chicken was amazing in the basement. That was pivotal, every visit. But I kind of wanted to, I guess, ask, paint the picture of what that looked like back in the day, whether it would be the Catch One, the first disco, or Pride, or any black events that were happening back in the day. Can you just kind of describe what that looked like?
I wanted to do something then that would be recession proof. And one of my brothers had been in the liquor store business for a while, and when I was discussing it with him, he said, "Why don't you get a liquor store?" I said, "Well, no, that's too impersonal in that."
Right.
And then later I thought, well, bar, that might be something that I would want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I kind of, like I said, backed into it.
How it manifested.
Yes. And there was a lot of things going on then. We're talking early 70s, which was like the beginning of the sexual revolution, where kids were going out. And there were a lot of little clubs, well, not a lot, but a few smaller clubs that were doing business, predominantly for guys then. And so I figured there was a market for it.
Absolutely.
And
there still is.
And I can remember too, 70s, 80s, I was right up the street at USC. I had a girlfriend-ish. And there were some people who knew that I was gay before I knew that I was gay, or at least conscious of it, or willing to step into, really being gay and being out. And so they tricked me into coming to Catch One. And that was the first gay club that I'd ever been to before. And I was at home, I fell in love, I left my girlfriend, and here I am. And the rest is history, and so I know there I would probably say millions of stories, similar to that as it relates to the Catch One. But it meant so much to us because it was like, for me, it was really the only place that I could go. We didn't have Jacked and Grindr and all of this on the internet. And the way that we connected was to actually be physically in the same space. And so at 57, for us back then, it was really about being in a person's presence and seeing them walk and seeing them move and the way that they talked and the sexiness that they exuded. It wasn't so like bam, off the top. So you got a sense of who you were dealing with because you kind of followed them throughout the club. You saw who they knew, you saw who they hung out, and if they talked to you like this and then the next minute they did some other stuff, you got a sense of, you know what you were dealing with, you knew what you were getting. And so it wasn't catfishing, I think it's called now, right?
Catfish.
Yeah, we didn't do that. So we know what we were dealing with. And I think the other thing that was really, really profound, and I know Ivan and I kind of share this history together, is that, Kevin Spears was a person who brought me to the Catch One, so I want to call out his name.
Sure.
Sure. And, this is National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Week. And then Dwayne Bremont, another name that I want to call out this month to remember, who founded the Beach Party.
Yep.
And I think I was at the first one, and I remember the helicopter.
What year was that?
Wow. That was, it was a long time. 80 something, yeah. Right in there, yeah. Yeah, the first one. And it was so exciting because it wasn't as structured as it became over time. But it was just really, it was an amazing time. And I can just remember what we experienced as it relates to racism. It was almost like Apocalypse Now. Helicopters were flying low, and the sand was flying all over the place, and the police came onto the beach, and they were going through coolers, and we were just bombarded because one, we were black, and one, we were gay. And I didn't think it would continue after that, but it did, and it grew. And so those were two sort of pivotal sort of events or activities that happened during that time.
Yeah. I also want to point out too something that's kind of revolutionary that hasn't really been done again. Like the Catch One was an LGBTQ club where everyone was all inclusive. Nowadays it's all, we have the lesbian night and the gay night, and then the transgender bisexual kind of find somewhere in between where they have to party. So I think that's kind of awesome that not kind of, but extremely awesome that you were able to bring everybody together at the beach party as well as the catch. So I want to kind of go into accomplishments. You guys are very living legends of Los Angeles. Is there one particular, I guess, moment or accomplishment that you think they are most proud of? Or maybe something in the top 5?
Well, just to continue on with what we were talking about with the mixture of gays and lesbians at the club, it wasn't always like that. It was mostly guys to start off with. Went on like that for several years. I think the AIDS crisis brought women and men together. The women took on their natural role of nursing. We all knew gay guys. We all hung out. All of us had probably come to, well, most of the women probably had come to the catch at one time with some gay guys initially. And so once the AIDS epidemic went into full force, then it brought the women out to be there, some with their friends that were in the process of transitioning.
I think one of the, for me personally, I think was when I reached a period in my life when I was no longer willing to be closeted or to hide. When I was willing to stand up in a room, no matter who was in a room, and say, I'm a black gay man, and that I could talk about the issues that we were grappling with in community, to include HIV, and to move beyond the shame, to be in a room full of ministers and to be sitting there going, oh my God, I'm sitting here and they're just gonna beat me down. And to be able to stand up and say that. And I was only able to do that as a result of, I'll be honest, to see all of my friends go through with what they went through, to include those who were in the hospice that's in the back of this property now, and to sit next to my friend Richard Lundy, and I want to call his name out. So I'm going to call some names out, because Richard was one of the most amazing men who really taught me that it was okay for me to be who I am, and to step into the fullness of who I am and God created me, and that I was okay just the way that I was, and that there were people like Carl Bean, who were, you know, when I would leave homophobic West Angeles, where I was an abomination in the eyesight of God in my face, you know, after I'd finished singing in the choir for 3 services, we would come over to Carl Bean and he would say, you're perfect just the way you are, and God loves you just the way you are. So because of that, you know, I was able to then at some point, you know, step up. And I think there's some regret that comes with that too, because I always feel like maybe I should have done it a lot sooner, and maybe I could have done something, I could have done more. But you know, it happens when it happens for us, you know, and so I think for me, just stepping up to my own life.
Living in your truth.
Living in my truth.
Living in your truth. As Black LGBT, we're pretty much at the bottom of the food chain. Like, not only do we have to deal with racism, we have to deal with homophobia, and especially with all that going on with friends, family, you know, people you consider family passing away, and you watching this. I want to kind of know, you know, at the end of the day, where did you, I guess, find your strength and motivation, and what would you kind of put on our generation to kind of just like help us deal with things, because it's not over. So I kind of want to know, like, what would be your best advice to put on?
To get involved, you know, and at various levels, and with the different people, like Jeffrey was saying, he spoke out in a room full of ministers. You know, we should be open and go wherever, you know, Spirit leads us. You know, I was not always comfortable in my own body either, you know, and I had to grow into that. I remember one time at the catch, there was a funeral, I think, and my family came up from San Diego, and someone had told them that, you know, I had a club, because I didn't tell them. So they showed up in mass, you know, and there was Southern Baptists, you know, and Yeah, I know. And the kids didn't know that they were family, but they knew that they were these straight, very staid people that were sitting over in a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just carried on. They were finger popping and And so I tried to sneak out, without them seeing me. But so things like that happen spontaneously,
Yeah.
and you don't have a chance to think or even reason about, what implications or
Right.
even fear of what
And just being in the
might.
moment.
Yeah. Because my biggest moment was coming out to my parents.
Wow.
And I was 50 years old then, but I was 20-something before I knew that I was lesbian. And, I had always lived in fear of what other people
Right.
would think about me. And then it took me a long time to realize that most of what they thought about me were lies and garbage anyway.
Exactly.
And that,
But we're not talking regardless.
yeah.
Well, see if I can answer the question, and if I don't, bring me back. Okay.
No.
It's okay. All right. So, I think you have a window of opportunity, and kind of speaking to younger people, I think you have a window of opportunity to avail yourselves to those of us who've been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's your responsibility to grab us. And I think what you can get and what you can benefit from us is sort of where we've been
Right.
to get to where we are right now. And I think that will afford you the opportunity to not have to necessarily fall into some of the pitfalls or some of the things that we experienced along the way, because we've kind of done a lot of that, because, if it weren't for the people who came before me, who really paved the way, who got their asses beat, who were totally discriminated against, and in a way that your generation will probably never really know. It's covert. It still exists. Racism is just so undercover right now. It's a scary thing now for you guys. So because I can see it, I can smell it coming. And so I think if you guys can garner from us what it is that we've experienced, take that and then build upon it,
Right.
and do it in your way, I think that we'll actually see ourselves making some headway. I think we'll see ourselves doing more than just marching time or maybe even moving backwards. Because sometimes I look and I kind of go, where are we right now as a community? What are young people doing right now? Don't they know?
Right.
And what I realize that in many ways you don't know.
No.
And part of that is because of that gap, that we lost so many along the way, and that we've not shared our stories, and that you've not connected with us. And so I would say that it now becomes your responsibility to connect yourself with a 50-year-old person.
To combine y'all.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think I also commend you too, because you have the mentorship program through in the meantime, and Vince and Scott are pretty dope. They were my mentors. So yeah, I think I definitely do believe they have a good point about the disconnect between the generations, because even when I was younger, when I was 22 years old, I just remember having like big brother figures, and then they just kind of like got married and moved to Long Beach and adopted babies. And then I was kind of like between like my mid-20s, I was like, all right, well, what do I do now? Just kind of run around and kind of figure it out on my own. So there definitely needs to be some type of bridge to bridge that gap, because we need to work on that, because some of us are lost.
Yeah, there's an African proverb that speaks to that too.
Really?
That's starting with the elders, and it said when the elders are lost, then the adults are lost, and when the adults are lost, the youth are lost.
Wow.
So when Jeffrey invites you to connect with someone that's older than you, and we are reaching out to, I'm reaching out, and I know this is true of Jeffrey too, that we're available, as is I'm sure a lot of other people in this room, to be there for you, to let you know there's an importance bigger than what most of us realize in knowing one's history.
Absolutely.
there's a middle school in Philadelphia that there was only 35% of the kids that started the middle school graduated. We're talking 8th grade to 8th grade, right? And they changed principals, and the principal came in and he did two things. He put them in uniform so they didn't have to worry about who had the Nikes and who didn't and who had the whatevers, and made it a must for each grade to study African and African American history. And the effect was immediate. Within the next year, within the next couple of years, it had flip-flopped, and within 4 or 5 years, almost everybody that went to that school graduated and it went on.
Huge turnaround.
It's important.
Extremely. So I kind of want to touch upon, it's also February, which means Valentine's Day is coming up. I want to know how, because nowadays we have Facebook. I mean, you get a date on Facebook, off your phone, Jack Grinder. What did a date look like back in the day? Can you describe that? And how did you even know? Like, how do you know if they is into you?
Wow.
I wanted
How do we know what?
if someone was into you. Sorry, they. Before anybody else. So if someone was into you, how would you know? And like, where would you go for a date?
Today?
Oh no.
Or you mean back in the day?
Back in the day,
Let me
yeah.
know.
Yeah, usually, especially I think more women than men probably celebrate those kind of holidays, around love and romance because, well, basically the big running joke was that with women you met them at a club or a church or whatever, and you said hello, and you moved in the next day to your home. So it's pretty swift. So right away you had to get the flowers together, the candy together, dinner, either cook it or or go out for it. But always minimally a card or some kind of recognition.
So you mostly met at like the club or out at church or anywhere?
Yeah, once we had at the church, this is where I met my spouse now of 27 years, was at Unity.
Yeah.
What about you, Mr. King?
Love is very different at 57 than it was then. And so dating is very different at 57 than it was when I was in my 20s. And so because I don't have Jack'd, I don't have Grindr, and I have an Adam for Adam account, and I'll just share that I don't use. Okay. And so I just haven't. And so I don't do it because it just doesn't work for me, not because I haven't tried it. And I'm old school because I am old school. And I actually like meeting a person face to face.
Mm-hmm.
I like sitting next to a person, and I like looking at the person in their eyes. And I like watching, because I'm very much an eye and lip kind of guy. So I need to see how your lips move, and I need to see your eyes. So those things are very, very important to me, even now, today. And so if you're trying to text me, you'll be very disappointed. It's just not going to work, because I may respond to you tomorrow. It's just so you can get upset. Why didn't you text me back? Because we're not really talking.
But what about
so,
before texting?
Before texting.
Adam for Adam.
Before texting, we did a lot of things. Well, if we're being really honest, we did things like drive up to Griffith Park. And we knew that the circle in Griffith Park was the place to meet, right? And it could mean a lot of things. It could mean for the moment, just like on the apps or social media is today. It could be for the moment, or it could be I really want to meet somebody and get to know somebody, or I'm new in town, or I want to meet some friends, because there are people who actually do go on those apps and actually do sincerely want to meet somebody and become friends. Maybe not a lot, but maybe, but I do think that even today that's true. But for us, it was going to the Catch One, and it was really about the Catch One, because I remember the little matches, Catch One, and we used to write our numbers down in ink. And the thing was, whoever had the pen had it going on that night. Because it was, it wasn't about putting your number in the phone. It was about finding a pen somewhere in the club. And why did I leave my pen in the car?
Oh, and getting angry with the bartender if they don't have one.
There you go.
Right.
You ain't got a pen. Panic sets in. And Catch One was named for that.
You got it. You got it.
Because that was the jargon then of the day, was to come to the catch. Well, come to the catch.
Catch one.
They catch at least one.
Prior to the catch, it was about catching. That was the word that was used for picking up.
Yeah.
Catch one.
And so I've had 4 lovers in my lifetime.
Okay.
And these are men that I still talk to today.
Uh-huh.
And they're different, cities around the country. And we will love each other for life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because of the bonding and the time that we spent together and getting to know each other, the good, bad, and the indifferent, and so I still have those relationships to this day, and we partied at the catch together, and we did go out on dates. And we spent a lot of time together, a lot of real face time together.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. We're like that this generation. We want to text and FaceTime and who knows what else. So when you say drift apart, I think kind of sparked something in me because I pretty much go back and forth from here to New York, and in New York it's the pier. So that was the hangout spot where everybody goes to the pier, especially on Halloween. They go out, do whatever they want to do, and kind of hang out. Was it kind of something like that, or do you like set that up? Or is that just like the hangout every Thursday night? We're gonna go to Griffith Park and.
Well, what do you?
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday, get it right. That was a Sunday spot, and then after that, it was a study. And so you just knew that. I mean, you guys go, and I've seen you do it. You go, we're over here now. And 2 seconds later, everybody is over there. So we just knew that around, after you leave church, you go home, you get something to eat. Somewhere around 3 o'clock, that was a peak hour, and it was like a parade, right? So you just knew where to go, and at what time, and it wasn't texting. We just knew what to do. That's kind of how I feel. Okay, all right.
So definitely some